You know something? Life has a funny way of teaching us lessons when we least expect it. I'm going to tell you a story that happened to me not too long ago, and I promise you, by the end of it, you'll see why sometimes the quietest moments can change everything. Have you ever been treated unfairly by someone who thought they were more important than you? Well, stick around because this story might change how you see the world forever. It was really early in the morning. The sun was just starting to come up, painting the sky in those soft orange and pink colors that make you feel like the world is brand new. I was at a huge airport trying to catch my plane home. Now, I wasn't there for anything fancy or special. I had just finished a small meeting about movies in another country, and honestly, I was tired and ready to get back to my own bed, my own house, and my own routine. I travel alone most of the time these days. No big group of people following me around like I'm some kind of celebrity. No assistants carrying my stuff and telling me where to go. Nobody asking me to sign their notebooks or take selfies every 2 seconds. Just me, my passport that's filled with stamps from all over the world, and this old brown leather bag I've been carrying forever. That bag has been with me through so many adventures. It's scratched up, worn down, and probably has seen more places than most people ever will in their entire lives. But I love it because it's mine, and it tells a story. The airport was absolutely packed that morning. And I mean really, really packed. You know that feeling when you walk into a place, and you can just feel everyone's bad mood hanging in the air like a thick, heavy cloud? That's exactly what it was like. People were rushing everywhere, practically running with their suitcases bouncing behind them, bumping into each other without even saying sorry, sighing loudly like the whole world was against them, constantly checking their watches and their phones. The security lines were super long, winding back and forth like giant snakes that never seemed to end. And the officers standing there at their posts? They looked like statues, stiff and serious, standing with their arms crossed, like they owned the whole building and everyone in it was just bothering them. Now, I've always believed we should follow rules. Rules are important. They keep things organized and safe. They help society function properly. But here's the thing I've also learned over my many years on this earth. When someone has power but forgets to be kind, when they forget that they're supposed to serve people, not control them, that power can turn them into a bully really, really fast. And that's dangerous. Are you paying attention? Because what happened next taught me something I'll never forget, and I think it's something every single person needs to hear. When I finally got to the immigration desk, that area where they check your passport and ask you questions about why you're traveling, I noticed the young officer right away. He looked pretty young, maybe around 30 years old, or perhaps a little older. His badge was shiny and new, like he had just gotten it last week. His uniform was perfectly ironed, with sharp creases down the front of his shirt and pants. And he had this look on his face, this expression that said he thought he was the most important person in the entire room, maybe even the entire airport. His name tag, pinned neatly on his chest, said Officer Michael Bennett. I looked at him directly in the eyes, the way my father taught me to always look at people when you're showing them respect, and I gave him a friendly nod like I always do. Then I handed him my passport, expecting a normal, quick interaction. But Officer Bennett barely even looked at me. He didn't make eye contact. He didn't smile. He didn't say a simple good morning, or how are you today? He just grabbed my passport from my hand, kind of roughly actually, and started flipping through the pages really fast, like he was searching desperately for something wrong even though there was absolutely nothing wrong to find. Then he asked in this really sharp voice, almost like he was annoyed that I even existed, "What's the purpose of your visit to this country?" I answered calmly and politely, the way I was raised to speak to people. "Work. Just a short stay for business. Flying back home today." He squinted at me, his eyes getting all narrow and suspicious, like I was some kind of criminal trying to sneak into the country. "Work? What kind of work do you do exactly?" "Film," I said simply. "I work in the movie business. I'm an actor and director." And that's when things got really weird, and not in a good way. He smirked, which means he gave me this mean little smile that wasn't friendly at all, and he leaned way back in his chair like he was some kind of king sitting on his royal throne. Then he said something that really surprised me, something I definitely wasn't expecting. You people from Hollywood think you can just walk around like you're kings or something. Huh. Think you're better than everyone else. Can you believe that? Someone actually said that to me while I was just trying to catch my plane. But just wait, because it gets even more interesting, and there are some twists coming you won't see coming. For a second, I honestly thought maybe I didn't hear him correctly. Maybe the noise of the airport, all the announcements and people talking, made me misunderstand his words. I've been making movies for a really, really long time, decades actually, and I've met all sorts of people during my career. Some are genuinely nice and kind, some are mean and cruel, some are jealous and bitter, and some are somewhere in between all of those. But it's pretty rare, extremely rare actually, for someone in a uniform, someone who's supposed to be professional and represent their country with dignity, to talk to anyone like that, celebrity or not. But I kept my cool though. I didn't get angry. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't demand to speak to his supervisor right away. I just took a deep breath and said quietly, trying to keep the peace, "No, son, I don't think anyone's a king. We're all just regular people. I just came here to work, same as everybody else. Same as you, actually." But Officer Bennett wasn't done with me yet. He wasn't finished showing off his power. He leaned forward across the desk, getting closer to my face, looked at me even more closely with those suspicious eyes, and said, "You're Clint Eastwood, right? That old cowboy actor from those Western movies my grandfather used to watch." "Yes, that's me," I said, without smiling or making a big deal about it. I've never been the type to brag about who I am. Then he actually laughed, but it wasn't a friendly laugh. It was mean and mocking. "Yeah, well, not everyone here cares about old movies or famous people. You think being famous means you can skip the rules? You think your name gets you special treatment? Now, let me tell you something really important, something I want you to remember. I don't mind being questioned. I really don't. That's Officer Bennett's job. He's supposed to check people's passports carefully and make sure everything is correct and legal. He's supposed to keep the country safe. I respect that. But it wasn't what he said that bothered me so much. It was how he said it. It was the tone of his voice, the look on his face, the attitude he was giving me. His voice was full of something ugly, something that shouldn't be in someone who's supposed to serve the public. Maybe he was jealous of people who are successful. Maybe he was having a terrible morning and taking it out on me. Maybe someone had been mean to him earlier and he was passing that meanness along. Maybe he just didn't like me for some reason I'll never understand. But whatever it was, he was being disrespectful, plain and simple, and there's no excuse for that. I said calmly, really trying my best to keep things peaceful and not make a scene. "I've stood in much longer lines than this before, son. I've waited in all kinds of places. Just do what you need to do. Take your time. I'm not in a rush." He paused for a moment, stared at me again like he was trying to intimidate me or make me feel small, and then he actually slammed my passport down hard on the counter. Bam! The sound echoed. People in other lines turned to look. "You Americans always think the whole world owes you something," he said, his voice getting even louder now so other people could definitely hear him. "You think you can just show up anywhere and get whatever you want. Well, here, in this airport, you wait until I'm completely done with my process. You wait as long as I say you wait. And I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a famous actor or the president himself. Have you ever been in a situation where someone treated you badly just because they had a little bit of power and they wanted to show it off? Have you ever felt small when someone tried to make themselves feel big? Keep listening because this story is about to take a really big turn, and it's going to teach us all something valuable. I could feel people in the other lines starting to stare at us. More and more heads were turning our direction. A few of them recognized who I was, and I could hear them whispering to each other, probably wondering what was going on, why that officer was treating me that way. Some of them looked concerned. Some looked curious. But I didn't say anything back to Officer Bennett. I didn't argue. I didn't pull out my phone and threaten to call someone important. I've learned over my many years on this earth that sometimes staying quiet, sometimes just being patient and calm, teaches bigger and better lessons than yelling or fighting ever could. Silence can be more powerful than 1,000 angry words. Officer Bennett took his sweet time typing on his computer, his fingers moving slowly across the keyboard, pretending like he was checking something really important and complicated. Then he leaned back again in that annoying way, crossed his arms over his chest like he had all the power in the world, and said with a smug look on his face, "You need to step aside, sir. We need to verify your entry history. There might be some irregularities we need to investigate." So I stepped aside, just like he told me to. I didn't argue. I didn't complain. I didn't cause a scene. I just quietly moved to the side and waited patiently, standing there with my old leather bag at my feet. I watched him call over another officer, a younger guy who looked fresh out of training. Officer Bennett whispered something in his ear, and then they both laughed together, looking over at me like I was some kind of joke. That's when I realized completely what was really happening here. This wasn't about checking my passport thoroughly or following proper security procedures. This wasn't about keeping the country safe or doing his job correctly. This was entirely about his ego, his need to feel important and powerful. He wanted to feel like he had control over someone. He wanted to show everyone around him, all his co-workers and the other travelers, that he could control anyone, even someone who's been in movies, even someone some people might recognize. He was flexing his muscles, showing off his authority, proving he was somebody. So I waited there. 5 minutes went by slowly. Then 10 minutes. People who had been behind me in line were already gone, already through, already on their way to their gates. But I was still standing there. Officer Bennett was still typing, still smirking with that mean little smile, still trying to make an example out of me like I was some kind of troublemaker who deserved to be taught a lesson. But then something changed. And this is where the whole story takes a turn. Pay very close attention now, because this is where everything flips completely upside down, and Officer Bennett's whole world is about to change in a way he never saw coming. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw another officer walking toward us with purpose in her step. This one was completely different from Officer Bennett. She was older, maybe in her late 40s or early 50s, and she had this calm but very serious look on her face that said she meant business. Her uniform was neat and clean, every button in place, and she walked like someone who doesn't waste time on nonsense or games. She had the kind of presence that makes people straighten up and pay attention. She looked like a supervisor, someone who's been doing this job for a long time and knows exactly how things should be done. Her name tag read Supervisor Janet Morrison. Supervisor Morrison came straight to me, ignoring Officer Bennett completely at first, and said in a respectful, professional voice, "Mr. Eastwood, I'm very sorry for this delay. This shouldn't be happening. May I please see your documents?" I handed them to her politely. She looked through my passport quickly but carefully, just once, checking the important pages, and then she nodded, satisfied. Then she turned to face Officer Bennett directly. "Officer Bennett," she said firmly, using that tone teachers use when they're really serious. "May I have a word with you? Right now, please." He stood up from his chair, still trying to act like everything was fine, like he had done nothing wrong. They stepped aside, just a few feet away, and whatever Supervisor Morrison said to him in that brief conversation, it only took about a minute, maybe even less. But I watched Officer Bennett's whole face change completely right before my eyes. His shoulders, which had been back and proud, suddenly dropped down. The color drained right out of his skin, leaving him looking pale and sick. His confident expression melted away into something like fear, and he couldn't look at me anymore. He kept his eyes on the ground. When they came back to the desk, Supervisor Morrison said to me in a kind voice, "Mr. Eastwood, everything is perfectly in order with your documents. You're completely free to go. Please accept our sincere apologies for the unprofessional treatment you received here today." This is not how we operate, and it's not acceptable. I nodded politely, always maintaining my composure. Thank you, ma'am. I appreciate that. No harm done. But then, just as I was reaching out to pick up my passport from the counter, Supervisor Morrison turned to face Officer Bennett, and she said something that I didn't expect at all, and I'm absolutely certain he didn't expect it either. Her next words changed everything. Officer Bennett, you are relieved of duty, effective immediately. Please remove your badge right now and turn it in. Then step into my office. We need to have a very serious conversation about your conduct and your future with this agency. Can you even imagine how that must have felt? One single moment he thought he was in complete control, that he was the powerful one, and the very next moment, his entire world fell apart right in front of everyone. The whole terminal went completely quiet. I mean absolutely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on that floor. The other officers who had been working nearby froze in place. Everyone who had been watching our interaction, and there were quite a few people by now, stopped moving. Some people had their mouths hanging open in shock. Officer Bennett looked absolutely stunned, like someone had just told him his entire world was ending, like the ground had opened up beneath his feet. His face showed complete disbelief. "Ma'am, please," he stammered, his voice shaking now. All that confidence completely gone. It was just a misunderstanding. I was just doing my job thoroughly. I didn't mean any disrespect. But Supervisor Morrison cut him off immediately, not letting him make excuses. "Officer Bennett, we absolutely do not tolerate disrespect toward any traveler, regardless of who they are, whether they're famous or completely unknown. Every person who comes through this airport deserves to be treated with basic dignity and respect. That's not negotiable. That's not optional. And that is definitely not how we operate here. Your behavior was completely unacceptable, and there will be consequences." Officer Bennett looked at me then, and I'll never forget the look in his eyes. They were full of confusion, genuine fear, and maybe even a little bit of anger, though he was trying to hide it. And for just one brief moment, I didn't see the tough officer with the shiny badge and the attitude anymore. I saw a young man, probably somebody's son, maybe somebody's husband or father, who had made a really big mistake. A mistake that was going to change his life. As Supervisor Morrison and another officer escorted Bennett away from the desk, watching him remove his badge with shaking hands, I didn't feel happy about what happened. I didn't feel like I had won some kind of victory. I didn't want to celebrate or gloat. I just felt genuinely sad, because that young man had a real chance to do his job with kindness, with respect, with the dignity that uniform is supposed to represent. But instead, he chose to be mean. He chose to use his small amount of power to make someone else feel small. And now he was paying a very heavy price for that choice. Are you starting to see the lesson here? Are you understanding why this story matters so much? Keep listening because there's more, and the most important part is still coming. A few minutes later, after things calmed down a bit, Supervisor Morrison came back to where I was standing, thanked me again very sincerely, and she even offered to personally walk me all the way to my gate, so I wouldn't have any more problems or delays. But I politely said no thank you. I told her I'd rather walk alone. I've always liked taking long, slow walks by myself after something intense like that happens. It gives me time to think, to process what happened, to understand the bigger meaning behind it all. 9 minutes. That's all it took. Just 9 short minutes for a man to lose his job, to have his whole career potentially ruined, because he forgot one of life's simplest and most important lessons. Respect doesn't cost you a single penny. It doesn't require special training. It doesn't need a college degree. But losing respect, throwing it away carelessly, can cost you absolutely everything. Your job, your reputation, your self-respect, your future. As I walked slowly toward my gate, pulling my old scratched-up leather bag behind me on its worn wheels, I thought about something my father told me a long time ago when I was just a young boy, maybe even younger than you are now. He sat me down one evening, looked me right in the eyes, and said something I've never forgotten. "Son, never let your pride talk louder than your character. Never let your ego be bigger than your kindness. And I realized right then and there, walking through that busy airport, that some people still have to learn that lesson the hard way. They have to lose something important before they understand how important it was. Before I got on my plane, something else happened that really stuck with me. I saw Officer Bennett again. He was sitting all by himself near the exit, slumped in one of those uncomfortable airport chairs. His badge was gone from his chest, leaving just a small rectangular outline on his shirt where it used to be. His uniform was a little messy now, not perfectly ironed anymore, like he had been pulling at it nervously, or maybe he had been crying. His eyes were red and puffy, like he had definitely been crying, or was fighting really hard not to cry right then. He looked completely and utterly lost, like a little kid who got separated from his parents in a huge crowd. I stood there for a moment, watching him from a distance, and I had a choice to make. I could just walk past him, get on my plane, and never think about him again. That would have been easy. Or I could do something different. I walked over to where he was sitting. When he looked up and saw me coming toward him, I could see in his face that he expected me to say something mean, to rub salt in his wounds, to make him feel even worse than he already felt. But I didn't do that. That's not who I am. I just sat down beside him for a moment, not too close, giving him space. I didn't look directly at him. I just looked straight ahead at all the people rushing by, living their lives, catching their flights, and I said quietly, in a voice only he could hear, "Son, power is only real, only meaningful, only worth anything, when you know how to use it to help people, not hurt them. Remember that." He didn't say anything back to me. He couldn't. His voice was probably stuck in his throat, but I could see something change in his eyes when I said those words. Maybe it was regret for what he'd done. Maybe it was understanding, finally getting it. Maybe it was both mixed together. Then I stood up slowly, tipped my hat the way I always do, like gentlemen used to do in the old days, and I said one more thing. Take care of yourself, son. Life always gives you another chance. Always. The question is whether you'll take that next chance with pride or with humility. That's up to you. And then I walked away toward my gate, leaving him sitting there with his thoughts. Now here's the thing I really want you to understand. The big message I want you to take from this whole story. This isn't just about what happened to me at an airport one morning. It's about something way, way bigger than that. That day, I learned something really important, something I want to share with you. Sometimes the best way to handle someone who's been mean to you, someone who's disrespected you or hurt you, isn't to be mean right back. It's not to seek revenge. It's not to try to hurt them the way they hurt you. It's to show them grace. And grace, which means showing kindness and mercy even when someone absolutely doesn't deserve it, even when they've treated you terribly, is incredibly powerful. Grace humbles proud people faster than any punishment ever could. It changes hearts in ways that anger never can. You see, when you get to be my age, when you've lived as long as I have and seen as much as I've seen, you start to notice patterns in life. You see the same situations play out over and over with different people. You see how people act when they get even a little bit of power. Some people use that power wisely and kindly. They use it to help others, to make things better, to serve. But some people, they let it go straight to their heads. They start thinking they're better than everyone else. They start treating people badly just because they can. And that's when they make really big mistakes that can change their whole lives. The story didn't end that day at the airport, though. A few weeks after everything happened, after I'd gotten home and mostly forgotten about the incident, I got a letter in the mail. It was in a big official envelope from the airport management, all professional looking with the airport's logo printed on it. Inside was the usual corporate stuff, formal apologies and promises that this kind of thing would never happen again. But tucked inside that big envelope was something else, something more personal. A short handwritten note on simple paper from Supervisor Morrison, that lady who had stepped in and handled everything. She wrote in neat handwriting, "Mr. Eastwood, thank you for the dignity and grace you showed that difficult day." The young man, Officer Bennett, has been placed under retraining and counseling, not permanent dismissal, as per your suggestion. We wanted to personally thank you for your compassion. Wait, did you catch that important detail? As per your suggestion. Do you know what that means? After everything calmed down that day, after I'd gotten through security and had some time to think, I had actually called the airport director myself, and I told him something that really surprised him. I said, "Don't fire that young man permanently. Don't end his career. Teach him instead. Give him another chance." The director was confused. "Teach him? After how he treated you?" "Yeah, teach him," I said firmly. "He doesn't need to be punished forever and ever. He doesn't need to have his whole life ruined. He needs to learn and grow. You don't fix someone's bad attitude and pride by just being angry at them and throwing them away. You fix it by showing them wisdom, by helping them understand why what they did was wrong." I don't know if that's what they would have done on their own, but I really meant every single word, because I believe deeply in second chances. I believe people can change. I've made my own mistakes in life, plenty of them. I've said things I wish I could take back. I've acted on pride instead of patience sometimes. I've been wrong. But you know what? Life's greatest teachers, the lessons that really stick with us and change us, are usually our worst moments, our biggest mistakes. And here comes another twist in the story that shows how powerful forgiveness and second chances can be. When I held that handwritten note from Supervisor Morrison in my hands, I sat there in my favorite chair at home for a long time, just thinking. I thought about the look on Officer Bennett's face when his whole world came crashing down around him in those 9 minutes. I thought about how incredibly quickly life can change, how one choice, one moment of pride, one decision to be mean instead of kind, can alter everything. Several months went by. I had mostly moved on with my life, making movies, spending time at home, doing the things I love. But then one day, I received another message, completely unexpected. This one was from Officer Michael Bennett himself. He wrote me a letter, and I could tell from his handwriting that he'd worked hard on it, probably writing it several times to get it just right. He said he had completed his retraining program. He'd gone through counseling. He'd done a lot of thinking and soul-searching. And he said he was back at work now, but with a completely new attitude, a totally different perspective on his job and on life. He wrote these words, and I remember them exactly. "Mr. Eastwood, you could have completely crushed me that day. You had every right to. I was disrespectful and unprofessional. But instead of crushing me, instead of demanding I be fired forever, you showed me grace. You gave me a second chance I didn't deserve. That grace, that kindness, changed me, sir. It changed how I see my job, how I treat people, how I see myself. Thank you." When I read those words, sitting at my kitchen table with my morning coffee, I smiled. A real, genuine smile. Because it proved something I've believed my whole entire life. People don't change when you humiliate them or punish them harshly. They don't grow when you destroy them. They change. They really truly transform when you inspire them, when you show them there's a better way, when you give them hope instead of just consequences. So what's the really big lesson here? What am I really trying to tell you with this long story? I'm telling you that respect is absolutely everything. It's the foundation, the building blocks of how we should treat each other every single day. Whether you're talking to someone famous or someone you've never met before, whether you're the one with the badge and the authority or the one standing in line waiting, everyone deserves basic respect and dignity. Everyone. I'm telling you that power means absolutely nothing if you don't use it wisely and kindly. Having authority, having a title, having a uniform, having people listen to you. None of that makes you important or special. How you use that authority, what you do with that power, that's what really counts. That's what people will remember. And I'm telling you that grace, showing kindness and mercy even when someone doesn't deserve it at all, is honestly the most powerful thing you can give another human being. It's more powerful than revenge. It's more powerful than punishment. It's more powerful than being right. 9 minutes. That's how long it took for Officer Bennett's life to turn completely upside down. But you know what? Every single one of us lives in those 9 minutes every single day of our lives. Every conversation you have with a friend, a teacher, a parent, or a stranger. Every choice you make about how to treat someone. Every time you interact with another person, you're either building them up or tearing them down. You're either making the world a little bit better or a little bit worse. Which one will you choose? That's the question I want you to think about. Before you go, before you move on with your day, I want to leave you with this final thought that I hope you'll carry with you forever. That morning at the airport wasn't just my personal story. It's a mirror, a reflection of what's happening all around us every single day in our schools, in our communities, in our country, in our world. We're becoming a society that's moving too fast, that's impatient, that's often blind to basic kindness and simple courtesy. We're so busy, so stressed, so focused on ourselves that we forget to treat each other well. And maybe we all need a wake-up call. Reminder that small gestures still matter so much. A genuine smile, a sincere thank you, a respectful tone of voice, holding a door open, saying please. These things might seem tiny and unimportant, but they're actually huge. They're what hold us together as people. So here's my personal challenge to you, and I really hope you'll take it seriously. The next time you're in any position where you have even a little bit of power or influence over someone else, whether you're a team captain choosing players, a classroom helper deciding who goes first, a big brother or sister telling a younger sibling what to do, or just someone older talking to a younger kid on the playground, remember this story. Remember Officer Bennett. Remember that real strength, true power, doesn't come from bossing people around or making them feel small. It comes from helping them, respecting them, lifting them up, and treating them exactly the way you'd want to be treated if you were in their shoes. Because at the end of the day, when all is said and done, titles fade away, fame fades away, power fades away, money fades away. But how you treat people, that stays forever. That's what people remember about you long after you're gone. That's the complete story of how I was disrespected by an immigration officer named Michael Bennett, and how 9 minutes later his whole life changed forever. But more importantly, it's the story of how both of us learned something really valuable about power, respect, humility, and grace. It's about how one moment can teach us lessons that last a lifetime. And that, my young friend, is what makes life worth living. Learning, growing, and becoming better people. If this story touched your heart in any way, if it made you think or feel something important, please share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Maybe a friend who's going through a hard time. Maybe a family member who needs encouragement. Subscribe to hear more true stories like this one that teach us about life. And always remember these words: be slow to anger, quick to listen, and always ready to show grace. Because you never know when life will test you too. You never know when you'll be the one who needs a second chance. Thank you for listening to my story.